In the Torah portion of Vayechi, we read how Jacob's about to pass away and Joseph is before him. And chapter 47, verse 31, Israel bowed down to him, to Joseph. Very odd that a father should bow down to a son. What is the Jacob's bowing of the head? So, the Shalah, Rabbi Isaiah Horowitz, 17th century mystic, explains, interestingly, that Jacob's bowing of the head is an allusion to the phylacteries, the tefillin of the head. Jacob's entire life was a tikkun, a spiritual healing of the errors committed by Adam, and at the end of his life this has reached completion. And therefore he has reversed, with the work of all the patriarchs, he has finally reversed the sin of the tree of knowledge committed by Adam and Eve. What's the allusion to that? So, there's a teaching that when Adam committed this sin, he previously was wearing garments of light, and they were transformed into garments of leather. That works much better in Hebrew, because in Hebrew both words and they're both pronounced the same. Light is and leather is So the garments of light became garments of leather. So leather became associated with a kind of sinfulness. Finally now, after Jacob, through all the incarnations, has achieved tikkun, he's achieved spiritual healing for the sin of the tree of knowledge, so now leather becomes holy. And that is why we put on leather tefillin. It's a reminder of the garments of the Garden of Eden now being rectified to their holy form. And the 12 stitches on the tefillin are an allusion to the 12 sons of Jacob who assisted him in this process of tikkun, of spiritual healing. Chapter 48, verse 14, we have this interesting story of the switching of the hands. Jacob's going to bless his grandchildren, Ephraim and Manasseh, and Joseph puts the right hand on the firstborn, left hand on the secondborn, but Jacob decides to switch round. As the verse says, Israel stretched out his right hand, placed it on Ephraim's head, although he was the younger, and he placed his left hand on Manasseh's head. What's going on here? So Joseph's wife, interestingly, was actually Asnas. Asnas was the child born from the union between Dinah and Shechem, when Dinah, Jacob's daughter, was abducted by Shechem and violated by her. So she was a bit of a mixed personality spiritually. She had klippah, she had demonic powers from her father, but she was the grandchild of Jacob, which was, of course, a very pure lineage. The klippah, the negative element, came out in the firstborn, whereas the second child of that union between Joseph and Asnas was more holy, more pure, and Jacob sensed this. And that is why he switched his hands, giving the more powerful blessing to the younger child, which he felt had inherited more spiritual potential from the union of his parents. Chapter 49, verse 1, Jacob gathers around his sons, he's going to pass away soon, and to give them a blessing. But beforehand, he says, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen with the Messiah. I'm going to tell you when the Messiah is going to come, and all of a sudden, the divine presence, the Shekhinah, departs from him, and either he's unable to say the date, he forgets the date, or he realizes from this dramatic departure that it's inappropriate to say the date, and he just moves on to blessing. Another person who incorrectly predicted the Messiah's coming was Rabbi Akiva. Everyone knows that he pointed to Bar Kokhba and said that this man is the Messiah, and unfortunately the whole event ended in tragedy. Now, the Arizal, Rabbi Isaac Luria, says that both of these individuals, Yaakov and Jacob and Rabbi Akiva, needed to be reincarnated for a tikkun, for a spiritual healing of this era of incorrectly predicting the Messiah's coming. And that's why, interestingly, we noticed that Yaakov, Jacob, and Akiva both contain exactly the same letters, hinting to the same problem of incorrectly predicting the Messiah. Chapter 49, verse 5. Now, if you read the story of Jacob's blessing of his sons, and you look at the detail in the blessing, because they're very rich, they're very detailed, but if you read through it, you'll notice that Shimon and Levi didn't actually receive any blessing at all. if you read what Jacob says to them, he just rebukes them. Why is that? Why didn't he give them any blessing? So the Zohar says the following. Book of Radiance, classic book of the Kabbalah, says that the different children of Jacob expressed different spiritual archetypes. And one of the spiritual foundations of the Sephirotic tree, of the basic building blocks of a Kabbalistic terminology and epistemology, is based on the idea of gvurah, of severity. Jacob didn't bless Shimon and Levi because he perceived they were gvurot. They were from the side of severity. And that doesn't mean they were evil. They were good. Their names are on the breastplate of the high priest. They were righteous people. But gvurot are dangerous. They can lead to breakdown. They can lead to tragedy. Primarily because they are the traits in us of anger, of resentment, of harshness, the desire to punish, the desire to limit information and not transmit it to others. All these ideas of gvurot. Jacob didn't bless the gvurot, not because he resented them, not because he felt they were evil, but he didn't want them to expand too much. He didn't want to give too much power to the gvurot. Gvurot are good, but if you contain them. And this is a very, very powerful lesson in our lives, that we love to cling to resentment. We love to exercise our power when we have it. And this can be dangerous. You really have to be careful with your gvurot. If you have none and you're just happy-go-lucky, then your kids will just end up without any discipline. Your staff will end up doing not being productive. We need boundaries. We need to have some gvurah. But it has to be so carefully and gently implemented. And from Jacob we can learn the lesson not to overextend it. Gvurah, severity, must always be used with caution. Well, we've reached the end of Genesis, the book of Genesis. The 5 books of the Torah all send us different themes, but Genesis means renewal. This has been a time where our spiritual work has been to work on renewing, refreshing, inspiring ideas that can really give us a kickstart in areas where we've completely lapsed. So, spiritual work for the week. Well, we always reflect upon the whole book when we finish the book. Get out a journal, write down the 12 Torah portions that we have in the book of Genesis, and don't make life too difficult, but at least mention one lesson that you remember from all of the 12 Torah portions. Give yourself a mark from 1 to 10 of how well you then successfully implemented it in your spiritual work, because it's not just about watching videos. You've got to put this stuff into practice, and the only way to measure your practice is to reflect back from time to time. Spiritual work shouldn't be painful, it shouldn't be exhausting, we shouldn't be self-punishing, but it is good to reflect on a little bit of our success rate and see how those ideas are being put into action, so we know how well we're doing. So, well done for working on the whole of Bereshit, of Genesis, and we hope to see you, God willing, next week when we will begin the book of Shemot, the book of Exodus, which is a different theme entirely. It's all about not just renewal, it's not just about introducing new ideas and fresh ideas, it's about breaking out of the prisons, the enslavement that we all put ourselves in by attaching our ego to unhealthy ideas. But that's for next week. Good luck with your journaling, and please, God willing, join us next week for Torah in 10.